Imagine a sword so sharp it could slice a falling silk scarf in mid-air. A blade that could cut through the barrel of a modern rifle without losing its edge. This wasn't magic. This wasn't legend. This was Damascus steel. And we have absolutely no idea how it was made. For over 1,000 years, from 300 AD to roughly 1750, the smiths of the Middle East produced blades unlike anything the world had ever seen. Warriors from Europe to China feared Damascus swords not just for their sharpness, but for their legendary toughness. Most blades of that era were brittle. They snapped under pressure. Damascus steel bent, absorbed impact, and then returned to shape. On the surface of every blade, a hypnotic pattern of flowing waves and dark lines, like frozen water, marked a weapon of extraordinary quality. Crusaders who faced these blades in battle brought them back to Europe as trophies. Kings paid fortunes for a single sword. Here is where it gets truly strange. Around 1750, the production of authentic Damascus steel simply stopped. No war destroyed the knowledge. No plague killed the smiths. The technique vanished almost overnight, and no one knows exactly why. Some historians believe the last masters deliberately took the secret to their graves. Others point to the disappearance of a specific ore from mines in India. A material called Wootz steel, which may have contained rare trace elements that were essential to the process. Without that specific ore, the reaction couldn't happen. The blade couldn't be born. For the last 300 years, metallurgists, chemists, and engineers have been trying to reverse engineer Damascus steel. They've used electron microscopes. They've mapped the carbon structures inside ancient blades, and what they found shocked the scientific world. Inside Damascus steel, researchers discovered carbon nanotubes, structures that modern science only officially identified in 1991. Nanowires, self-assembling molecular structures. Inside a sword made in the year 500 AD. How did medieval blacksmiths, without any scientific instruments, without any knowledge of chemistry or physics, accidentally create nanotechnology? Nobody has a satisfying answer. Today, dozens of laboratories around the world produce what they call Damascus steel. You can buy it online. You can find it in expensive kitchen knives. But every materials scientist will tell you the same thing. It's not the same. The original formula, the original process, the original magic is gone.
It makes no sense.
And somewhere in that loss is a reminder that human knowledge doesn't always move forward. Sometimes it disappears, just like the blades themselves, beautiful on the surface and full of mysteries we still cannot explain. The Pantheon in Rome has stood for almost 2,000 years. Its massive concrete dome, still the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, has survived earthquakes, floods, wars, and the collapse of an entire civilization. Meanwhile, modern concrete highways built in the 1950s are crumbling and need constant repair. Roman concrete gets stronger with time. Ours falls apart. How is that possible? Ancient Rome wasn't just building monuments, they were engineering on an industrial scale that rivals our own. Harbors, aqueducts, bridges, entire cities built from concrete that was poured underwater in seawater and left to cure for centuries without cracking. The Romans called it opus cementicium. Modern engineers call it impossible. In 2017, researchers took samples from a Roman breakwater that had been submerged in the Mediterranean Sea for over 2,000 years. The concrete hadn't just survived, it had grown stronger. Crystalline structures had formed inside the material, reinforcing it from within. No modern concrete does this. When our concrete meets seawater, it begins to dissolve. The Romans somehow built structures that the ocean itself made indestructible. So what was in Roman concrete that made it immortal? Scientists know some of the ingredients. Volcanic ash from the Bay of Naples, specifically a type called pozzolana, lime, seawater, chunks of volcanic rock. But knowing the ingredients is not the same as knowing the recipe. The exact ratios, the mixing process, the curing time, all of this was lost when the Roman Empire fell. There are ancient texts that mention concrete. Vitruvius, a Roman engineer, wrote about construction techniques in 30 BC. But his descriptions are vague. He describes materials, not methods. It's like reading a recipe that says, use flour and heat. Technically accurate, but useless if you want to bake bread. By the year 600 AD, the knowledge was gone. Europeans forgot how to make concrete entirely. For over 1,000 years, they built with stone and wood, while Roman structures quietly outlasted them all. In the last 50 years, materials scientists have obsessively tried to reverse engineer Roman concrete. They've analyzed samples under electron microscopes. They've recreated ancient kilns. They've tested hundreds of volcanic ash mixtures, and they've gotten close. In 2023, MIT researchers announced they had finally cracked a major part of the mystery. The key was something no one expected: lime clasts. These are small chunks of quicklime that ancient engineers left in the mixture, either by accident or design. Modern concrete avoids these completely. We see them as flaws. But the Romans understood something we didn't.
It worked.
When cracks form in Roman concrete, water seeps in and reacts with those lime clasts, producing new calcium carbonate that fills the crack automatically. It's self-healing concrete. 2,000 years before we even had the concept. Today, the concrete industry is one of the largest contributors to global carbon emissions. Every year, we produce over 4 billion tons of cement, and the process releases massive amounts of CO2. Roman concrete required far less heat, far less energy, and lasted 50 times longer. We have the scientific tools they never had. We have supercomputers. We have electron microscopes. And yet we're only now beginning to understand what a Roman engineer knew instinctively while standing on the shores of the Mediterranean, mixing ash and lime by hand.
What enduring mark?
The question isn't just how they did it. The question is, why did we forget? Imagine a weapon so terrifying that it burned on top of water, a fire that couldn't be extinguished, that spread when you tried to put it out with water, that clung to ships, to armor, to human skin, and kept burning. For 300 years, this weapon saved the Byzantine Empire from complete destruction, and then one day, the formula simply vanished. No one has been able to recreate it since. The year is 678 AD. An enormous Arab fleet is sailing toward Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire. The Arabs have more ships, more soldiers, more resources. By every military calculation, Byzantium should fall. But the Byzantines have a secret. From bronze tubes mounted on the bows of their ships, they unleash a torrent of liquid fire onto the Arab fleet. The ships ignite instantly. Sailors jump into the water and and the fire follows them. The sea itself is burning. The Arab fleet is completely destroyed. Constantinople survives. This wasn't the last time. Greek fire would go on to save Byzantium at least 3 more times over the following centuries, against Russian fleets, against Bulgarian armies, against Arab invasions. It was the nuclear weapon of the medieval world. So what exactly was Greek fire? Here is where history becomes frustrating. The Byzantines guarded this secret with extraordinary paranoia. The formula was known only to the imperial family and a single lineage of chemists, the Kallinikos family, who reportedly invented it around 672 AD. It was never written down in complete form. Partial descriptions exist. Ancient sources mention ingredients like quicklime, naphtha, pine resin, sulfur. But none of the surviving texts contain the complete recipe. The proportions, the process, the delivery mechanism, all deliberately obscured. When Constantinople finally fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453, whatever remained of the knowledge died with the empire. Modern chemists have tried to recreate Greek fire for centuries. They've created substances that burn on water. They've tested hundreds of chemical combinations, but nothing fully matches the historical descriptions. A fire that could be aimed like a liquid, that burned underwater, that reignited when doused. The closest modern theory suggests Greek fire may have been based on a primitive form of napalm, combining petroleum distillates with quicklime, which reacts violently with water and generates its own heat. This would explain why water made it worse. But here's the problem. Byzantine texts describe Greek fire being projected through bronze tubes under pressure, at range, in a directed stream. Creating that kind of pressurized delivery system with medieval technology is extraordinarily difficult to explain. Some researchers believe the Byzantines may have discovered a form of distilled petroleum, essentially crude gasoline, centuries before the modern world. Others think there was a biological component, a thickening agent, possibly animal fat or plant resin, that gave the fire its legendary clinging properties. The truth is, we simply don't know. What makes Greek fire uniquely haunting is not just that the formula was lost, it's that it was deliberately protected and then deliberately destroyed. This wasn't an accident of history. The Byzantines made a conscious choice to keep this weapon secret from the world. And they succeeded so completely that even 14 centuries later, with all of our chemistry, all of our technology, all of our scientific understanding, we cannot figure out what they knew. Some secrets, it seems, are meant to stay buried. But not all lost technologies were weapons of war. Some were instruments of extraordinary beauty, like the next invention on our list. A musical instrument whose secret died with a single family in northern Italy. In 1901, Greek sponge divers discovered a Roman shipwreck off the coast of Antikythera. Among the statues and pottery, they found a corroded lump of bronze and wood. For decades, it sat ignored in a museum basement. When scientists finally X-rayed it, in the 1970s, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Inside that corroded mass was a machine, a mechanical computer built around 100 BC that predicted the positions of planets, eclipses, and Olympic Games with stunning accuracy. Nothing even close to this level of complexity would appear again in human technology for 1,500 years. The Antikythera mechanism wasn't just a clock. It was an astronomical calculator of breathtaking sophistication. Turn a single input dial on the side, and a complex system of at least 30 bronze gears would calculate and display the positions of the Sun, Moon, and 5 known planets. It predicted lunar and solar eclipses, not just their occurrence, but their precise time and characteristics. It modeled the irregular orbit of the Moon using epicyclic gearing, a mathematical concept we thought the Greeks only understood theoretically, never mechanically. The device even tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. All of this in a wooden case no larger than a shoebox, built 2,000 years ago by an unknown craftsman using tools we assume were primitive. Here is what makes this discovery so disturbing to historians of technology. After the Antikythera mechanism, there is nothing. No similar devices. No evolutionary predecessors. No descendants. The next known geared astronomical device appears in Islamic Baghdad around 800 AD, 700 years later, and it's far simpler. European clockmakers wouldn't achieve this level of mechanical complexity until the 14th century. Over 1,000 years after this Greek device sank to the bottom of the sea. This creates an enormous problem for our understanding of ancient technology. Either the Antikythera mechanism was a one-time genius creation, a technological miracle that appeared and disappeared without leaving a trace, or it represents the pinnacle of a much larger tradition of precision engineering that has been completely lost to history. Most historians now believe the second option. Somewhere in the ancient Mediterranean world, there was an entire craft of gear cutting, precision metalwork, and mechanical computation. And we have only this single surviving example. It took over a century for scientists to fully decode the Antikythera mechanism. Early researchers could barely see the corroded gears. In 2005, imaging technology advanced enough to read the nearly 2,000 characters of instruction text inscribed on the interior bronze plates. An ancient user manual written in tiny Greek letters. What they discovered was shocking. The device used differential gearing, a technology we associate with modern car transmissions, to account for the variable speed of the Moon's orbit. It compensated for the elliptical nature of planetary motion. It contained mechanical features that wouldn't be invented again until the Renaissance. In 2021, researchers at University College London built the first complete working reconstruction based on all available evidence. It took them 12 years. They used cutting-edge materials, science, computational modeling, and precision machining. And even with all of that, they admit, we still don't fully understand how the original builders manufactured gears this precise without modern tools. The Antikythera mechanism forces us to ask an uncomfortable question. How much have we lost? If a single shipwreck can preserve a technology this advanced, a technology that contradicts everything we thought we knew about ancient capabilities, what else sank, burned, or simply decayed into dust? Roman engineers wrote about automata, mechanical theatres, programmable devices. None survive. Greek mathematicians described machines we assumed were theoretical fantasies. Maybe they weren't. The Antikythera mechanism proves that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because we haven't found something doesn't mean it never existed. And sometimes the most beautiful technologies aren't born from war or industry, but from the pursuit of perfect sound. Which brings us to an instrument whose secret has haunted musicians for 300 years. Zero. There are approximately 650 Stradivarius violins still in existence today. Each one is worth between $5 and $20 million. Not because they are old, not because they are rare, but because no violin maker in 300 years, using every tool modern science has available, has been able to recreate their sound. A wooden instrument built by a single craftsman in a small Italian town in the 1700s produces a quality of sound that remains to this day scientifically unexplained. Zero. Antonio Stradivari was born in Cremona, northern Italy, around 1644. He began making violins as an apprentice to Niccolò Amati, himself a master luthier from a famous family of instrument makers. But Stradivari surpassed his teacher. Between 1700 and 1720, a period known as his golden period, he produced instruments of such extraordinary quality that musicians today still fight to perform on them. He worked into his 90s. He made over 1,000 instruments in his lifetime. And when he died in 1737, he took something with him. His two sons tried to continue the workshop. They failed. Other Cremona luthiers tried to copy his methods. They failed too. Within a generation, the secret was gone. So what exactly is different about a Stradivarius? Scientists have been asking this question seriously since the 1970s. They've taken wood samples, they've run acoustic analysis, they've used CT scans to map the interior geometry, and they've found several unusual things. First, the wood. Stradivari used spruce and maple from trees that grew during the Little Ice Age, a period of unusually cold European climate between roughly 1300 and 1850. Trees growing in colder conditions produce denser, more uniform wood rings. The acoustic properties of this wood are measurably different from modern timber. Second, the varnish. Chemical analysis has revealed that Stradivari's varnish contained unusual compounds, mineral fillers including potassium silicate, volcanic ash components, and what appears to be a protein-based ground coat, possibly made from animal or plant material, applied beneath the varnish layer. This combination is found in no other instrument maker's work. Third, the geometry. The precise curves, thicknesses, and internal architecture of a Stradivarius are so specific that even fractions of a millimeter of difference in construction produce a measurably different acoustic result. 2. Here is where the story becomes genuinely strange. In multiple blind listening tests, including a famous 2010 study and a follow-up in 2012, professional violinists were asked to play both Stradivarius instruments and modern high-quality violins while blindfolded. The results were deeply controversial. In some tests, the musicians actually preferred the modern instruments. In others, they couldn't reliably tell the difference. But here is what those tests consistently missed: the experience of the concert hall. Musicians who perform on Stradivarius instruments describe a quality called projection. The sound doesn't just fill a room, it carries. It reaches the back of a 2,000-seat concert hall with a clarity and richness that modern instruments, however excellent, struggle to match. This quality has proven almost impossible to measure in laboratory conditions. It exists in performance, in space, in air, and no one can fully explain why. Antonio Stradivari never wrote down his methods. He left no technical documents, no recipes for his varnish, no blueprints for his geometry. He learned by doing, refined by listening, and perfected by instinct over 70 years of work. The knowledge lived in his hands. And when those hands stopped working, the knowledge ended. Today, the finest violin makers in the world study Stradivarius instruments with the most advanced imaging technology available. They get closer every decade, but closer is not the same as equal, and equal is not the same as understanding why. Which leaves us with one final question. What happens when a technology isn't just lost, but physically impossible to move? When the ancient wonder is so massive, so heavy, that we still cannot explain how it got there at all?